Hi friends, can you believe it's July already? Now, I didn't get to read as much as I wanted in June, but the books I read were some of my absolute favorites of this year so far. So let's wrap this month up and let's get you some recommendations for summer reading. Now, first one up is Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang, and I have talked about this book already extensively in its own dedicated book review video. If you haven't seen it already, you can watch it here. So if you want to know my extended thoughts on this book, do watch that video. I will say, however, I ended that video with the question which of the two I liked most, being Babel or Yellowface. And at the end of the video I was leaning towards Yellowface, but having thought on it, I'm starting to lean towards Babel again. And for the sole reason that Babel is a much more emotional read for me. You don't care about the main character in Yellowface. If she makes you feel anything at all, it's going to be either anger or disgust. But I actually cared for the main characters in Babel and the things they were going through. So for that reason and that reason alone, I think I'm going to go with Babel, but who knows. Still, highly recommended. Absolute one of the best books I read this year, Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang. Second one on the list today is a bit of a lucky find actually. It is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. Now, I hadn't heard about this book until someone in my book club started reading it, and it kind of intrigued me. Finlay Donovan, a single mom and floundering crime writer, is having a hard time. Finlay Donovan, single mom and floundering crime writer, is having a hard time. Her ex-husband went behind her back to fire the nanny, and this morning she sent her 4-year-old to school with hair duct taped to her head after an unfortunate incident with scissors. Making it to lunch with her literary agent is a minor victory, but as she's discussing the plot of her latest crime novel, the conversation is misinterpreted by a woman sitting nearby as that of a hit woman offering her services to dispose of a problem husband. And then the woman slips Finlay a name and a promise of a large sum of cash. Finlay finds herself plotting something much bigger than her next novel. After all, they do always say, write what you know. Now, here's the thing. This is a murder mystery crime novel, and I do read quite a lot of these, but the thing with modern contemporary murder mysteries is that a lot of it has been done before and it tends to get quite a lot of the same easily. Now, this was quite a surprise. This isn't much more of the same. Finlay Donovan as a main character isn't a badass at all. She isn't the all-knowing detective that summons everyone into the room and, reveals who the murderer is. No, this is the kind of main character, the kind of detective that stumbles into clues by accident, trips over the body, that might fall in love with the possible murderer. It is quite refreshing and I liked it a lot. As I understand it, this is the first in a series of books, and in fact I think I'm going to pick up some of the others. Now, this isn't true crime at all. I mean, if you're looking for a plausible story, if you're looking for hyper-realism, if you're looking for correct police procedures, things like that, this is not a book for you. But if you're looking for a fun time, a good read, something you can read easily, something that is highly entertaining, then do give this one a try, because it is quite a lucky find. So, a funny, smart book, Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano, second one on the list for this month. Third one on our list today is a graphic novel, and it is Speak by Laurie. This is in fact the graphic novel version of the well-known and praised YA classic, and I must say, seeing it illustrated brings the book back to life again. Now, if you don't know, this is the story about Melinda. Melinda is a young girl going to high school and having a rough time after she spoiled a bit of a rave, summer rave, by calling the police, and no one wants to talk to her. She's a bit of a social pariah, and even though the school says, we care about your opinion, you should speak up about the things you find important in your life, she knows that's a lie, because something happens to Melinda which makes it very hard to speak about and which isolates her. And it's through this creation process, through art and drawing, she finally builds up the confidence and the courage to speak out about the terrible things that happened to her on that summer rave night. What exceptionally works with this story is that because it is about art and drawing, we actually get to see some of her drawings in the book, in the art of this graphic novel, which adds an extra dimension to the whole story. And this is in fact quite a heavy read. It is about sexual abuse, it's about sexual assault, and even though the art style is very comparable to, let's say, Heartstopper, for instance, this has nothing of the cute, fluffy, heartwarming story that Heartstopper is. This is a rough book, this is not an easy read. So if you decide to pick this one up, do check the trigger warnings because it can get heavy at times, but apart from that, it is an excellent adaptation of a great YA classic, Speak by Laurie Anderson. Next one on the list is Why Women Grow by Alice Vincent, and I have a lot to say about this book. It is in fact a non-fiction book, but it is one of those non-fiction books that reads like it was fiction. One of the main differences for me between fiction and non-fiction is that non-fiction often offers this very neutral, very factual language, while fiction is the language of a storyteller. It's flowery, it's embellished, it's descriptive. And this book, although non-fiction, really manages to very much catch that fiction vibe. Women have always gardened, but our stories have been buried with our work. Alice Vincent is on a quest to change that, to understand what encourages women to go out, work the soil, plant seeds and nurture them, even when so many other responsibilities sit upon their shoulders, to recover the histories that have been lost amongst the soil. Why Women Grow is a much needed exploration of why women turn to the earth, as gardeners, growers and custodians. This book emerged from a deeply rooted desire to share the stories of women who are silenced and overlooked. And in doing so, Alice fosters connections with gardeners that unfurl into a tender exploration of women's lives, their gardens and what the ground has offered them. With conversations spanning creation and loss, celebration and grief, power, protest, identity and renaissance. Now, nowhere will you see this book described as the sequel of her previous book, Rootbound, but it is in many ways. With Rootbound, we met the author when she was a younger woman, at 20-something, struggling with all of those typical issues and problems that age brings. What do you do after graduating? What job should you choose? How do you find affordable living? How do you tackle relationships? In Rootbound, Alice Vincent, the author, explored all of these issues and rediscovered and rekindled a love of plants and gardening. In this book we meet her again, but now she's in her early 30s and things have changed. She has a steady career, she is married, she has a house, but she finds that this period of her life brings its own questions. Questions about what it is to be a woman, to be a married woman, questions about motherhood, and even if you don't ask those questions yourself, people will ask them for you, sometimes very loud. The difference between the two books, in the first book she more or less turns into herself to find the answers, but this time she turns outwards. She finds other women and sits down and has these incredible conversations with them. Conversations about loss, about trauma, but also about hope and love. This book tackles some of the hardest subjects. I mean, it is about stillborns, it is about loss, it is about chronic disease, but it does so in a very gentle, in a very soft way, and it is never without hope. I absolutely adored this book. It is by far the best non-fiction book that I've read in a long time. And I highly recommend it. I will, however, place one caveat with this book, that if you're not into gardening, if you don't have green fingers, if you don't care at all about plants, then you might still enjoy it, but a lot of it will be lost on you, because this book is about a love for growing, a love for nurturing plants, a love for gardening. But first and foremost, it is a beautiful collection of very personal tales, stories full of sadness and hope and anger and loss and warmth. So if you're looking for something totally different to read, a book that makes you think, a book that makes you feel, Why Women Grow by Ellen's Vincent. Highly recommended. Last book on our list this month is a bit of a dad book to read, I will happily admit that, but it is Churchill, An Extraordinary Life by Sarah Gristwood and Margaret Gaskin. Now, there are many biographies of Churchill on the market out there, and I don't really like all of them because a lot of them idolize the man or focus too much on his wit and his quirks. Others just tear him down. But the truth is somewhere in between, and this book for the first time actually catches that truth. And this book doesn't only focus on his public life and World War II, but it also zooms in on the man behind that, his private life, and that made it far more interesting to read about. I never knew that Churchill was plagued with mental health issues and depression, especially after the Gallipoli failure in World War I. While he was often berated publicly for not caring about the lives that he threw away in Gallipoli, he actually cared very deeply and suffered from the results from his decisions. It also tells the story about a rebellious politician, a man that did not care about party politics and even dared to switch allegiance depending on whose ideas he supported. And it also tells the story about his married life, his life at home, in his favorite house in Kent, Churchill House, and his very endearing relationship that he had with his wife. Churchill was without a doubt one of the titans of 20th century international politics, but this book makes a man out of him again. It is beautifully illustrated, has a ton of photos in it, even has some of Churchill's paintings in it, because I didn't know the man was a painter, but apparently he was. So if you're looking for a more historical read, non-fiction read, and I know a lot of you on this channel love history books, so do check this one out. It was a very revealing, a very interesting read, and I, again, highly recommend it. So there you have it, 5 books to get you to the next month. And now I want to hear from you. What are you reading at this moment, and why should I pick it up? Or perhaps I should totally ignore it? Let me know down below in the comments, and we'll talk some more books. Thank you for watching, hope you'll enjoyed this video, and in the meantime, if you're looking for a free book to pick up, you can always watch this video.